She didn't have to say a word. The first time her fingers brushed mine, I understood more than any sentence could carry. It happened in the quietest corner of the cafe, the kind where the hum of conversation fades into a soft, background blur. Her hand reached across the small wooden table, steadying a cup that had nearly tipped. My hand was there too. Just a brief touch, nothing deliberate, but it lingered. She was older than me, obviously. Not in the way people talk about age, but in the way she carried silence, with weight, with history. Her name was Lena, though she said it only once, and even then as if she was offering something fragile. I wasn't supposed to stare. But there was something about the way light rested on her, like the world had learned to slow down around her. Her hair was loosely tied, strands escaping in defiance. Her lips curved just enough to seem like she was hiding a secret. "Sorry," I said, pulling my hand back. Her eyes flicked up, catching mine for a second too long. "Don't be." That was all. But the way she said it, the softness, the faint tremor, felt like she wasn't just talking about the cup. She had a book beside her, one of those heavy paperbacks with worn pages. Poems by Rilke. I remember it because I'd read the same one in college, underlining the same lines I imagined she had. "You like him?" I asked, nodding at the book. Her smile came slow. "I used to. These days, I think I just miss who I was when I first read him." That line stayed with me. It sounded like something someone says when they've already left a version of themselves behind. Outside, it had started to rain, not heavy, just enough to blur the glass. The sound filled the pauses between us. I could have left, maybe should have, but I didn't. "Do you come here often?" I asked. It sounded ridiculous the second it left my mouth. "Not really," she said. "I come when I need quiet." Then she looked at me again. "You?" "I come when I need noise," I said. "I don't like hearing myself think." That made her laugh, soft, surprised, almost like she hadn't expected to. For a moment I thought that was it, just two strangers caught in the same rain, exchanging words that meant more than they should. But then she reached for the cup again, her fingers brushing mine once more. This time, she didn't move away immediately. Her hand was warm. Mine wasn't. She glanced down, pretending not to notice the touch, or pretending it didn't matter. But her thumb trembled ever so slightly, just once. It was enough. We talked until the cafe began to empty. Time slipped by unnoticed, replaced by the rhythm of her voice, low, deliberate, every pause weighted. She spoke about her work, about the city, about the small things that made her restless. I didn't know why she told me any of it, but I listened like every word was a secret. At one point she said, "You remind me of someone." "Someone good?" I asked. She looked at me for a long time before answering. "Someone honest." The rain had stopped, but neither of us moved. The silence stretched, and I realized she wasn't just looking at me, she was seeing me. It was terrifying. Then the bell above the cafe door rang. A man's voice, familiar, firm, called her name. Her hand slipped away. Lena's posture straightened, her expression closed like a door shutting softly. "Excuse me," she whispered. And just like that, she was gone, leaving behind the faint scent of her perfume and the warmth still clinging to my fingers. I didn't know it then, but that single touch, the one she pretended not to notice, was going to ruin my sense of distance forever. I saw her again 3 weeks later, by accident, or maybe not. The university was hosting an alumni event, something half forgotten in my inbox. I almost skipped it. But when I walked into the old library, there she was, Lena, standing near the display case of antique books, her hands folded in front of her like she was protecting herself from being seen. Her hair was pinned differently this time, tighter, as if control could be worn like armor. She noticed me first. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, surprise, then hesitation, then something softer. "Evan," she said, the sound of my name careful, like she was testing whether it still belonged to me. "You remembered." She smiled faintly. "You don't forget people who ask too many questions about Rilke." The air between us held the same quiet tension as before, but now there was history inside it. Not shared history, but a sense that we'd both been thinking about the same moment, that brief touch across a cafe table that had refused to fade. We walked together down one of the hallways, lined with framed photographs of past professors. The floorboards creaked under our steps. "Are you still teaching here?" I asked. She nodded. "Yes. Still pretending to know what I'm talking about." "You never pretended," I said. "You just had a way of making everyone else listen." Her glance lingered at that, maybe too long. "Careful, Evan. You sound like a student again." Maybe I never stopped being one. That made her laugh, low, quiet, but her eyes betrayed her. There was something in them, a tiredness, maybe. Or guilt. We stopped near a tall window. Rain again. Of course it was raining. She looked out, her reflection faint in the glass. "I was married once," she said suddenly. 15 years. "We're not together anymore." I didn't ask why. "Do you ever talk?" I asked instead. "Not really. Some people are better at absence than presence." I nodded, pretending I understood. But something in her voice cracked through me. It was the first time she'd said anything personal, and the way she said it, quietly and without self-pity, made it impossible not to care. When she turned to me, I realized she was closer than I thought. Close enough that her perfume filled the space between us, close enough that her breath brushed the collar of my shirt when she spoke. "Evan," she said softly, like she was about to warn me. "This I know," I interrupted. "You don't have to say it." But she didn't move. Not yet. Her fingers hovered near my sleeve, then rested lightly on my shoulder, barely there, but enough to make every nerve in me sharpen. The hallway was empty, but I felt like we were being watched by the ghosts in every photograph around us. Her hand lingered, then withdrew slowly, as if she had to convince herself to do it. "We shouldn't," she whispered. "Then why are you still here?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just a faint, almost invisible shake of her head. The silence that followed was heavier than any confession. When she finally walked away, she left her scarf draped over the railing by the window. I picked it up, meaning to call after her, but I didn't. It was warm. It smelled faintly of rain and coffee. And as I stood there, holding it, I realized something had shifted. Whatever line we'd both been pretending not to see, it wasn't there anymore. The scarf was still on my desk a week later. I told myself I'd return it, but every time I tried, something in me wanted to keep it, like proof that what happened in that hallway hadn't been imagined. Then one evening, I found her again, or maybe she found me. She was in her office, lights low, a half-empty mug beside a stack of essays. Her glasses were resting on the desk, and her eyes looked tired, softer than usual. I stood at the door. "You left this." She looked up, startled for half a second, then smiled faintly. "You kept it." "I was going to bring it sooner." "I believe you," she said, though her tone made it sound like she didn't. I stepped closer, handed it over. My fingers brushed hers as she took it, just for a moment, and there it was again, that pulse of warmth neither of us seemed able to ignore. She sighed, glancing down at the papers. "They all write about love as if it's a poem. No one ever mentions the quiet parts, the waiting, the distance, the ache of it. Maybe that's because no one wants to admit how much it hurts," I said. She looked up. "Do you?" The air thickened. Her question hung there, heavy, dangerous. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Her office was small, the lamplight golden and close. The scent of old paper, coffee, and her perfume filled the space. It felt almost alive, as if the room itself was holding its breath. When she moved, I did too, like we were part of the same quiet current. "Evan," she said softly, "people talk. You know that, don't you? I don't care what they say. You should. Do you care?" Her eyes flicked to mine, steady, searching. "Every day." Something in her voice cracked on that last word, and before I knew it, she was right in front of me. We weren't touching, but there was barely space between us. Her hand lifted slightly, then stopped midway. The seconds stretched. "You should go," she whispered. "I should," I said. But I didn't move. A knock. Both of us froze. "Professor Hale?" A student's voice from outside. "Do you have a minute?" Her breath hitched. I could feel the heat of it against my cheek. "1 second," she called out, steady, too steady. We stared at each other, two people caught in a moment neither could explain. She reached for the doorknob, but I caught her wrist gently. "Say you'll meet me after," I said quietly. Her pulse fluttered beneath my fingers. She didn't look at me, but her hand turned, not away, just slightly, enough for our palms to press together for the briefest second. Then she pulled free, opened the door, and smiled as if nothing had happened. The student walked in, apologetic, oblivious. I stepped out into the hallway, heart pounding, the echo of her touch burning in my skin. From behind the half-closed door, I heard her laugh, the same calm, careful voice, pretending. And still, when our eyes met through the glass, she didn't look away. She didn't have to. That look said everything her words never could. It had been days since I'd seen her, but she was everywhere, in the quiet between lectures, in the smell of rain-soaked paper, in the way my hand hesitated over my phone before I put it down again. Then, one evening, she texted, "I left a few of your notes in my office. Come by before I lock up." No signature. No pretense. Just that. By the time I reached her office, the hallways were empty. The air was heavy with the scent of polish and rain. Her door was open slightly, a sliver of lamplight spilling across the floor. She looked up when I entered, her expression unreadable. A cardigan draped loosely over her shoulders, hair falling messily from its pin. There were papers on her desk, but she wasn't working. She was just sitting there, waiting. "I didn't leave anything here," I said quietly. "I know." The honesty in her voice stopped me cold. She stood, moving toward me with that same calm grace she always had, but her eyes were different now. Tired. Raw. "This has to stop," she said, even as she stepped closer. "Then tell me you don't think about it," I said. She looked at me, really looked. "You don't understand what this could cost." "I don't care." "You should." "I can't." The words came out sharper than I meant, and for a heartbeat, either of us breathed. Then something broke, not loudly, but in the quiet way things fall apart when they've been held back too long. She reached up, fingers brushing my jaw like she was memorizing something she wasn't supposed to touch. Her hand trembled slightly. "Evan," she whispered, "you're making this impossible." "I think it already was." Her thumb traced the corner of my mouth, the lightest touch, gone almost before it was there. The room shrank around us, just the sound of our breathing, the low hum of the storm outside. I could smell her shampoo, the faint sweetness of coffee still on her breath. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "I shouldn't want this." "Then tell me to go." She didn't. I stepped closer, 1 inch, maybe 2, until I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. My hand found the edge of her cardigan, sliding along her arm. She didn't move away. Her eyes flickered down to my lips, then back up, and I felt everything tighten inside me, the restraint, the guilt, the wanting. "Say something," I murmured. Her breath brushed my neck when she answered. "I can't think when you're this close." "Then stop thinking." Her eyes closed for a moment, and I felt her lean in, not fully, just enough that her forehead touched mine. Seconds. Just seconds. Then the doorknob turned. We sprang apart as the janitor's voice drifted in. "Sorry, thought everyone was gone." Lena's hands were shaking as she gathered her papers. "You need to leave," she said quietly. I nodded, but neither of us moved. And then, barely audible, she whispered, more to herself than to me, "If you stay, I won't stop you this time." The next morning, the university buzzed with whispers. I didn't know why at first, until I saw the notice pinned to the faculty board. Professor Lena Hale to take a leave of absence effective immediately. The paper trembled slightly in my hands. No reason listed. Just those words, cold, distant, final. I found her later that afternoon in the empty lecture hall, standing by the window where the light cut across the floor in long, pale strips. She didn't turn when I came in. So it's true? I asked. Her voice was quiet. It's better this way. For who? For both of us. That's not an answer. She exhaled slowly, arms folded, gaze still fixed on the glass. Someone saw us. That night. My stomach dropped. What do you mean saw? They didn't hear, but they saw. They thought. She trailed off, shaking her head. It doesn't matter what they thought. It's enough to start questions. Lena, I told them it was nothing. That you were just dropping off papers. But the look in their eyes. She stopped, her throat tightening. I realized it's only a matter of time before it becomes something else. I stepped closer. So you're running. I'm protecting you. That's not your choice. Her eyes finally met mine, red-rimmed, unsteady. You think I don't want to stay? You think I haven't tried to convince myself that this— She gestured between us, helpless. Is harmless? Then stop pretending. I said it before I could think. She flinched like I touched a bruise. You don't understand what it's like to lose everything because you wanted something you shouldn't. She turned to leave, but I reached out, catching her wrist. She froze. Then tell me it was nothing, I said. Tell me that night didn't mean anything. Her hand trembled under mine. She didn't pull away, not yet. Evan. Her voice cracked on my name. Don't make me say it. I stepped closer until our shadows blended against the wall. Say it, I whispered. She turned, her breath uneven, her lips parted as if she wanted to lie, but couldn't. It meant everything, she said finally, the words falling out like something she'd been holding back for years. The silence that followed was unbearable. I felt her pulse racing beneath my fingers. She felt mine too. We were close enough that every breath we took was shared. But instead of reaching for me, she stepped back. I can't do this to you, she said, voice breaking. To myself. Then what are you going to do? Her hand hovered near the door. I'm leaving town tonight. Just until it calms down. I wanted to stop her. I wanted to say something that would undo it all. Instead, I nodded, because love, I was learning, wasn't always about holding on. Sometimes it was about letting someone walk away even when every part of you screamed not to. As she walked past me, her shoulder brushed mine. No words. Just that faint touch, the same one that had started everything. And as the door closed behind her, I knew there was no turning back. The next time I saw her, nothing would be the same. Weeks passed before I saw her again. The world had gone back to its rhythm, classes, coffee, the dull hum of routine, but I moved through it like someone half awake. Then one evening, as the last of the winter light faded, I saw her standing outside the same cafe where it had all begun. She looked almost the same, hair tucked behind her ear, scarf looped loosely around her neck, but something in her eyes had changed. She saw me before I could decide what to do. Evan, she said softly. I wanted to say 100 things, but all that came out was, you came back. For a few days, she said. I didn't plan to, but I couldn't stay gone. The street around us was quiet, the air cold enough that our breaths lingered in the space between us. She looked at me like she was memorizing the shape of the moment, cautious, tender, scared. Can we talk? I asked. She nodded. Not here. We walked to the park nearby. The benches were wet from the rain, so we stood beneath the shelter by the pond. The city lights shimmered in the water, the reflection trembling like something barely held together. You shouldn't have come, I said. Probably not, she answered. But pretending I didn't care stopped working. Her honesty hit like a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I tried to move on, she continued, her voice low. Tried to tell myself it was just timing, or loneliness. But every time it rained I thought of you. Every time someone said my name, I heard you saying it. She looked away, but I stepped closer, close enough that the air between us shifted. I never stopped thinking about you, I said. I told myself it was wrong, that it would ruin everything. But the truth is, it already did. Her eyes met mine. Then what do we do now? I don't know. Silence. Just the sound of the water lapping softly against the shore. Then she moved, barely, just one small step closer. My hand rose instinctively, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. My fingers grazed her cheek, and she closed her eyes, leaning into the touch like she'd been waiting for it. This is a mistake, she whispered. I know. And you'll regret it. Probably. She opened her eyes, and in them was everything we'd both been trying to say for months. Her hand found my chest, resting over my heartbeat. Then why does it feel like the only thing that makes sense? Because it is. The rain started again, slow, soft, a hush that wrapped around us. She leaned in until our foreheads touched, her breath trembling against my lips, not a kiss yet, just the promise of one. For a moment, the world fell away, no consequences, no hesitation, just the truth of being seen completely. Then she pulled back, eyes wet but steady. I can't stay, she said. I know. But you'll remember this. I already do. When she walked away this time, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like understanding, the kind that hurts, but frees you anyway. Spring came quietly. The campus trees bloomed early that year, scattering petals across the same cobblestone paths we used to walk. I hadn't seen her since that night in the park, only traces of her, an old message thread, a line of poetry she once quoted, the faint memory of her hand against my chest. Then one afternoon, I saw her again. She was sitting alone on a bench outside the library, sunlight catching the gold strands in her hair. No pretense, no distance, just Lena in the open. For a moment, I stood there, uncertain. Then she looked up and smiled, small, genuine, unguarded. It was the kind of smile that said, I've made peace with it. Have you? I walked over. You're back, I said. For good this time, she answered. I thought I'd try teaching again, if they'll still have me. They will, I said. You belong here. Her eyes softened. Maybe we both do. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was full of everything we didn't need to explain. We sat for a while, side by side, watching students hurry past, lives unfolding like nothing had happened. She told me about her time away, how she stayed near the coast, how the ocean sounded lonelier than she expected. I told her about the stories I'd started writing but couldn't finish. Why not? She asked. They all felt like they were missing an ending, I said. She smiled faintly. Maybe that's because some things aren't meant to end. I turned toward her. And what are they meant to do? She met my gaze, calm, certain. They're meant to change us. The breeze picked up, scattering petals across the bench. One landed in her hair. Without thinking, I reached out and brushed it away. My hand lingered longer than it should have, but she didn't pull back this time. Her fingers found mine, gentle, deliberate. For the first time, there was no hesitation in her touch, no guilt, no need to look over her shoulder. Just warmth. Real, human, unhurried warmth. You know, she said softly, I spent a long time wishing things had been different. But now I think it had to happen exactly as it did. Why? Because we wouldn't have understood each other any other way. Her hand tightened slightly around mine. I could feel the steady rhythm of her pulse, calm and alive. No grand gestures. No promises. Just two people sitting close enough to feel the quiet beat of something that had survived every reason not to. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and for a while, we just sat there, breathing the same air, sharing the same silence. When the sun dipped lower, she whispered, We'll be all right, won't we? I smiled. We already are. Her touch still said everything her words couldn't, only this time, I understood every part of it.